Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another Monday this and that video, which is where I talk about all kinds of different topics. And now that we're getting heavy into the garden season, these are also going to be the videos where I give you garden related updates, because as far as the rest of my videos, I am actually now 6 weeks ahead for the other 4 days of the week that I publish videos. And it's crazy that I'm that far ahead. So I have to have at least one day of the week where I can do things that are more current and keep you updated. As such, today I'm going to be doing some garden updates, because this past week we had another several days of actually summery day weather, and it got pretty warm for our area. And whenever that happens, even though everything like the grapevines, for instance, just been sitting there, just dead brown branches for the longest time, we get a burst of hot weather and suddenly poof, the leaves and the little grape buds start coming out. So it's just crazy how from one day to the next I can look out there and see just brown branches, and then now they're getting full of life. So here's a couple of images right now what it looks like as far as the deck goes, because I grow my grapes around the deck because it just makes us nice, especially later in the summer when we're more likely to have barbecues out there and sitting out on the deck. It makes this nice green privacy wall all the way around, because some of you may not realize we do, even though we have a couple other bigger pieces of property, we've been doing most everything as far as gardening and so on right here on our little shy 1/3 acre piece in a neighborhood. And as such, we try to make it as private in our backyard as possible. And the grapevines serve several purposes, and that is one of them. And so I also have blueberries. My blueberry plants, though, on the deck are getting pretty old, and they're in pots. They've been in there for like 7 or 8 years now. So it's, I think, not only are they just old plants anyway, but they've just been in those pots for so long. My friend did get me a new blueberry bush, though. I'm going to be planting out in the ground in the main garden area, I think. But I've loved having the blueberry plants on the deck. Here's a picture from a few years ago when they were at their peak. They really filled in that deck. And it's also nice because the grapevines would kind of hide the blueberries when they get ripe, and I'd be less likely to have problems with robins eating my blueberries up. But at any rate, so yeah, those are, at least we'll still get blueberries again this year. One of my blueberries is up and died a couple years ago. I have another one that's just real close to, I don't think it's going to come back next year, but I said that 2 years ago and it still keeps coming back, though it hardly gets any berries. Another exciting thing is out front in our carrot boxes that I didn't actually plant any carrots in last year. What I did last year was I had left the year before, when I harvested the carrots out of it, I had left a few carrots in each of the boxes so that they would go to seed this last year. And then I could harvest the seed and then plant them this year. Well, it looks like I don't need to plant the seeds that I saved, because enough of the seeds fell off of the plants that I've got little carrots coming up all over the place out there in my boxes. So I'm just going to see how well those do. I want to try beets again. A few years ago I did great with beets, but for the past several years I tried to grow beets. I just never could get the same kind of harvest that I got the first year. And I know part of that is because each year our season seems to be getting shorter and colder. Though last year, even though it started late, at least it extended later into the fall, our nice warm weather. So that was the only reason I was able to get a good harvest of tomatoes and peppers and grapes. I got some zucchini planted out front. I got cucumbers in the ground. I got pumpkins in the ground. And so potatoes are coming up all over the place. What I do now with corn, by the way, I started this last year because I've tried so many different ways of growing corn in our very cool and short growing season climate. And I've tried like planting them in little paper cups that I made and then putting those in the ground once they got so high and it was warm enough. Those didn't do great. I've done direct seed that did okay. But last year, what I found worked best. Contrary to popular belief on transplanting corn, I took a bunch of corn seed from my previous harvests of corn, and this is the glass gem. It's the one that grows best for us personally, so it's a great grinding corn. And I just put it in a longer pot in the window of my greenhouse, and they just do great. And then I leave them in there until they just start getting too big, or we finally get enough warm weather that I can put them outside and know they're going to be okay. And that's worked great. Even if I have to pull them apart and separate out the roots, I've had no issues. It has not killed a single corn plant doing that. And that's been the best method yet. The tomatoes have all been in the ground. Oh, and my lilacs this year, or last year, I was starting to get a whole bunch of lilacs on my young lilac bush, but because of the freeze we had, it not only killed all the blossoms on every single fruit tree. Thankfully, it spared my grapes, but all the fruit trees killed every blossom, got not one bit of fruit. As with most people around here, any fruit trees did terrible, but it also killed the blossoms on my lilac. They were still only about that big, and they, of course, hadn't even started to open up. And those all shriveled up and died because of the freeze that we had. But this year, thankfully, I've got a lot of lilac flowers out there, and I'm anxious. I'm going to be able to harvest them real soon, and I'm going to dehydrate some. I'm also going to make some cold infusions rather than a hot tea for the summer. So I have a video coming out that I just shot. That's going to be 6 weeks out, about cold infusions and various ideas for making such. And it's just as simple as putting whatever herbs or whatever you want into a jar with some water and putting it in the refrigerator and leaving it for at least 24 hours. You can leave it up to 2 days and then consume it. Obviously, the longer you leave it, the more of the flavor and nutrients in those herbs is going to infuse into the water. But it just makes a tasty and also refreshing drink. So I'm excited to try that with my lilac flowers this year. I think that would be great, along with the various mints I like to use, because mints obviously are very refreshing, especially like peppermint. Mojito mint is one of my favorites to use for that. Borage is also a great one, and much, much more. So if you watch that video, Lemon Balm 2, watch that video when it comes out in a few weeks. In about 6 weeks, you'll get a lot more ideas. And that's just scratching the surface of all the many herbs that you can use to make a tasty cold infusion for hot days. With the garden related stuff, I just finally remember to go out and harvest some thyme. I keep forgetting to do it. I need to get some dehydrated up. And this is just, there's still at least this much more I could harvest off of one of my thyme plants. I grow some out here on the deck. That's just if I need a little bit. I can just step out here, grab a little bit for whatever it is I'm making. But for harvesting and dehydrating for use through the year, I have a plant that does really great out front. And so I wanted to show this because you can see I waited so long that it's already starting to flower. And yep, you can use those flowers. The flowers on a lot of these types of herbs are edible. Typically what you'll find, especially like with your Mediterranean oregano, when it flowers, the flowers will still have that same oregano flavor. They're just more mild. And the same goes for the thyme. So what I do when this happens and I've waited too long and it's already started to flower, I just use all of it. Leaves, flowers, and all, just dehydrate them up together. And boy, this smells wonderful. I love the taste of and aroma of fresh thyme. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say about the garden is Patrick was able to get 15 yards because we have a 15-yard dump truck. And we have a friend that had she had to get a bunch of trees taken off of her property. So they got that all mulched up and she was just getting rid of it and filled up a whole 15-yard dump truck full of mulch. And Patrick dumped it at the other piece of property just down the road. And then he's been bringing over with his backhoe a buck at a time. And so I'm so thrilled because we lost our horse manure resource that we had just down the road, just right across the street from another piece of property. But now we got this mulch, and so it's going on all of my garden areas. So that's one of the other things we've been doing this past week is just shoveling this mulch all over the place. Still got a lot more to go. I need to do my West Herb garden, my little narrow front south-facing garden where the thyme grows. I want to get a bunch in there. And then I'm leaving a pile in the front yard garden. So as some of my other things start to get bigger, because some things like the carrots are still so tiny, I want to start piling more of that mulch around them as they grow bigger. I just don't want to cover them up right now. But yeah, it's going everywhere. I'm so excited because now that will help hold in a lot more moisture so I don't have to water as much. And because even in rain country, we can have a few months of some pretty dry weather. So that mulch layer will really hold that moisture in. And then as it breaks down more, because it's already partially broken down, that will richen the soil up again for next year. And then we'll have a lot more to go in there, because I don't think I'm going to put all 15 yards on my gardens this year. So maybe half of it. So we'll have at least half left to pile on there next year. All right, and a couple other things I wanted to talk about. Macadamia nuts are actually my absolute favorite, even more so than Brazil nuts, which I adore. But because of the price, it's something that I just every once in a while when I'm doing a Costco order, I will buy some. But it's kind of rare, maybe once a year. And so but this is actually the second time this year I bought some, because I've decided since I've been vacuum sealing nuts in jars for quite a few years, there were still some nuts I was a little more nervous about. I'm not nervous about it anymore. And so I'm vacuum sealing up the macadamia nuts into my jars for long-term storage, because to me, one of the things I wanted to say is that we're to the point now with our food storage that we have a lot of our basic necessities, our flours and our grains and our beans, and we grow a lot of beans that can be used for both green beans and dry beans for chilies and more. I'll keep restocking those items as we work through them, but we don't need to get farther ahead on those. So trying to put some things that are just more luxury type foods every now and then, just to add more diversity to our food storage. So I just will show you real quick. This is what I do. So I just fill up my jar with the nuts. And then the extra, I can even vacuum seal these up in a smaller jar. But what I'll do with these is I'll just use these for snacking now. And then anything that I vacuum seal into jars like these is for long-term storage. For, if we just can't afford to buy something like this is going to be a real treat. Then I put my lid. I always use recycled lids that I've canned with before. I already forgot what the name of this one is, but I was sent a bunch of these by the company. These are all US made, very thick. I personally am very happy with them, and they work excellent, even better so than Ball or Kerr for vacuum sealing once you've used it for pressure canning. And then I just use my brake bleeder pump. That's brake bleeder pump. That means it's automotive, okay? And this is my preferred method for vacuum sealing. But I did do a video on options for vacuum sealing using both electric, battery operated, and hand pump methods that I'll link to down below if you're interested in some other ideas. But this is still my most preferred method right here. So I just pump that up until the needle gets at least to the facing straight up and down, which is about the 15/400, the numbers, and then I usually go past that. And the safest thing, if you can handle it, is just to keep going until the needle stops moving. But I'm not actually worried about that. That's going to be good enough, because these lids work really good, even though this one has a bend in it right here. Look at that. Nice tight seal. That's not going anywhere. And then I put my band on there. And yes, vacuum seal goods, you put the band on snugly. You don't crank it on super tight. Just put it on snug. That's going to be best. This isn't pressure canned, water bath canned. That only the leaving the bands off or taking the bands off applies only to pressure and water bath canned goods. But when you're talking about vacuum seal goods, you really need to put that band on there. And so I'll mark that, put that back in storage, because I want to make sure I'll know they're macadamia nuts, but either way, I want to make sure I get a year on there so I know how old they are, because we want to work through the oldest ones first. And then I bought some more almonds since I was doing the Costco order, and I'll do the same thing with the almonds. I like to stay ahead on a lot of those things. And then another thing I tried for the first time, like I was talking about growing beets, since I haven't been able to grow beets really great in the past several years, I thought I'd go ahead and try this organic beet juice powder from Anthony's. Now, Anthony's I've been buying more and more of their products through the years, and they're getting to where they're offering more and more, and I love it because it's a smaller US-based business, and though not everything they have is organic, they do have a lot of organic stuff. And so I thought I'd give this a try, and that's all that's in here is beets. and it's really good. And so what I've been doing, mostly doing this for my health, it's good for helping to clean out the body, just general health. Beet juice is actually really good also for seasonal allergies. And I did do a video not too long ago on herbs and more to help with seasonal allergies that I'll link to down below. But anyway, I just thought I'd give this a try because I noticed in the past couple of years, even though I pretty much eradicated my seasonal allergies, I've noticed the past couple of years they've been more problematic again. And I have some suspicions on that we got a lot of geoengineering going on out there, and they're not shy about talking about it anymore. So who knows what all that stuff's doing to us in the air. But anyway, so giving this a try to see how it works. But what I've been doing anyways, one of the other things I get every now and then from Costco is their organic lemonade. And so I've been mixing some like about 6 ounces of the lemonade with a teaspoon, more of a heaping teaspoon of the beet powder in there, and it actually is quite tasty. So that's something I'll do once a day. And I'm really happy with that. So anyway, I'll link to the Anthony's beet juice powder. But Anthony's is getting more great products. They have a lot of gluten-free flours for those who cannot have gluten. So that's where I get most of the gluten-free stuff for when I'm baking for our friends who are gluten-free. And they're getting more and more herbs and spices. So like, for instance, the last bag of organic cloves that I bought, I got from Anthony's, the whole cloves. And they have cocoa powder. Next time I need cocoa powder for making chocolate, I'm going to buy the Anthony's brand, and ashwagandha and much more. So anyway, very happy with that brand. Between Frontier and Anthony's are my 2 favorite places now to get herbs. I don't buy from Star West anymore, by the way, because most of that stuff comes from China, and it is not a US based business like Anthony's is, and Frontier Co-op. And then I wanted to mention the knife. So last week I was talking about the Nakano knives, and I am going to be shooting later today, which will publish in about 6 weeks, a standalone video on the Nakano knives. But I did get that bread made like I said I would, and I didn't actually expect this to work any better than the bread knife I had, my Pioneer Woman bread knife that I got at a garage sale. It worked better. And here was how I tested it. Is that, when you make that nice loaf of bread and you pull it straight out of the oven and you try to cut it, and you got this nice beautiful crust on it, but it's so hot that it just wants to squish when you go to cut it. That didn't happen. I was able to use this knife and actually cut a nice steaming hot slice of bread off of there without squishing my bread at the same time. So very happy with my Nakano knives so far. They've been wonderful. And so I'm still highly recommending them. Now I get the Mito ones, the Mito, and they're the ones with the olive wood handle. They're actually the least expensive set that they have in there. And they're the ones that I like the looks and the shapes of them better than any of the other ones, the much more expensive ones they had. So I love these. But, as I said before, I'm not a professional chef. I've never worked with fancy Japanese knives before. So I'm only going by my limited experience here with knives, most of them being cheaper knives. And all I can say is I'm very pleased with these. One more thing in closing I wanted to say is that whenever I have a video that goes kind of viral, like my blackberry leaf video that was actually new from this year, and then I think it was because of the blackberry leaf video, my strawberry leaf video from 2019 suddenly started taking off too. And whenever this happens, I'll get a whole bunch of new people that will come in and they'll gripe. There's 2 things that they'll gripe and complain about. You talk too much. Well, I'm teaching. Do you tell your high school teachers or your college professors they talk too much when they're teaching? I don't know. Whatever. It's silly. Their choice. They can leave. They don't have to stay. But the number one thing I'm most likely to get complaints about is the fact of my opening statement, God is good all the time. And so here's a couple things I want to say, is that I have some very loyal, loving followers that are agnostics, atheists, pagans, Muslims, and more. And they do not treat me that way. They don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because they don't agree with my views. And I love and appreciate them for that just as much as I love and appreciate all my followers that have very similar beliefs as me and follow me, maybe for that very reason. So I appreciate those that don't let my personal beliefs make them intolerant of me and the information I have to share. And the second thing I want to say is it doesn't matter what anyone says, what kind of names they want to call me, however they want to cuss me out. They can do that. I will delete their comments, especially if they're using foul language. But this is my channel. The reason I am here today doing what I'm doing is because of my faith in the Lord, and I will not stop giving him glory at the beginning of every video. And that's just the way it's going to be. Like it or lump it, you know. And again, I appreciate those that may not believe in that. They may just suffer through that, my opening phrase and the verses I put at the end of the video. And I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. I don't know why more people can't be that tolerant, because the funny thing is a lot of the people that get that angry about it are the same ones that are screaming for tolerance and everything else, but they won't tolerate a simple opening statement of God is good all the time. That's the Lord God. Capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. And that is who I serve. I'm not going to bow down and serve those people that want me to shut up about my beliefs. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. So again, thank you for all of my loyal followers, no matter what your beliefs are, and for putting up with me even if you don't agree. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my this and that for the week, and I plan you'll probably be seeing more and more garden updates now that we're really getting heavy into the season on these Monday videos. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.